Hi friends, it's Emily with Emily T Astrology, and I am your host for Hermes Speaks. This is your weekly Astro check-in where we explore the current quality of time and bring in some added mercurial insights through the written word and bibliomancy. Look, I know I said I wasn't going to be here this week at the time that this episode airs. I will be camping off the grid and away from technology with my family for my kids' spring break. But, I guess I was just kind of, as my teacher Adam over at Nightlight Astrology would say, grabbed by the planets, all this energy in Aries right now. And I just decided to do an impromptu, impulsive, off-the-cuff riffing very quickly for you all on this week's astrology and a pull from a book, a bibliomancy pull. So this will be a little brief. It'll be not nearly as edited as I normally do, which my Virgo parts, I have a Virgo stellium, are a little uncomfortable with, but I just didn't want to leave you hanging. I didn't want to leave you hanging, right? So we are looking at the week of April 8th through the 14th. And the main thing I'm thinking about this week is that tomorrow on the 9th, Mars moves into Aries. By the 12th, Mars will conjoin Neptune in Aries. And on the 14th, Mercury also moves into Aries. So all this Aryan energy, that's kind of what I was thinking about. I just looked at the week really quickly and thought, Mars moving into Aries feels like a big deal. And I just didn't want to leave you hanging without a little bibliomancy guidance for the week. So I'm just going to jump right into it. The book I decided to pull from, A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. This is the fifth and final of the published books in the Game of Thrones series that the show Game of Thrones was based off of, A Song of Ice and Fire. This is the fifth book. I don't know about you all. I'm kind of giving up hope that the planned other two books in this series are ever going to be published. And by the way, if y'all watched the show and wanted to just cry and tear your hair out by the last few seasons, please read the books. They are so much better. So this is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. And I, sat down with the book on my lap and I said, okay, Mars and Aries, Mars conjunct Neptune, right? What do you got for me? Hermes, Mercury, messenger god. And I opened the book and read this. Some things never change. Inside the eel, time stood still. The barrel-vaulted ceiling was stained black with soot. The floor was hard-packed earth. The air smelled of smoke and spoiled meat and stale vomit. The fat tallow candles on the tables gave off more smoke than light, and the wine that Davos ordered looked more brown than red in the gloom. 4 whores were seated near the door drinking. One gave him a hopeful smile as he entered. When Davos shook his head, the woman said something that made her companions laugh. After that, none of them paid him any mind. Aside from the whores and the proprietor, Davos had the eel to himself. The cellar was large, full of nooks and shadowed alcoves where a man could be alone. He took his wine to one of them and sat with his back to a wall to wait. Before long, he found himself staring at the hearth. The red woman could see the future in the fire, but all that Davos Seaworth ever saw were the shadows of the past. The burning ships, the fiery chain, the green shadows flashing across the belly of the clouds, the red keep brooding over all. Davos was a simple man, raised up by chance and war and Stannis. He did not understand why the gods would take 4 lads as young and strong as his sons, yet spare their weary father. Some nights he thought he had been left to rescue Edric Storm. But by now, King Robert's bastard boy was safe in the Stepstones. Yet Davos still remained. Do the gods have some other task for me? He wondered. If so, White Harbor may be some part of it. He tried the wine, then poured half his cup onto the floor beside his foot. Okay, first of all, the imagery here, right, feels it feels very much like Mars and Neptune, right? We've got the red woman, Mars, the red planet, the planet of war and action and drive and aggression and passion. The red woman who could see the future in the fire. We're talking about the fire. This is Aries we're talking about, which is a fire sign. We've got the red keep, the white tower. It's like these colorful images. And then we also have something that it speaks so much to fatigue, to weariness, to kind of like an aged bone weariness, right? He's got no interest in the horrors. He just wants to rest his back against a wall. He can't even really stomach the like aged brown wine, right? He's not interested in any of it. He's giving up hope. Why would the gods take 4 of his sons and leave this weary old man? Right? And I think this speaks very much to Mars, Neptune. Mars, planet of action, will, and drive. Neptune has been referred to by astrologer Michael A. Bryan as one of the 2 toilet bowls in astrology, meaning the places of drain, of dissipation, of, going down the drain, circling and going down the drain. So what do we take from that? The planet of action, sinking into the toilet bowl. Weariness, right? Often Mars-Neptune transits show up with a sense of fatigue, a lack of energy, the draining of vitality in a sense. And we get that here very strongly. But what also stands out to me is that spark of hope, right? He looks at the hearth, he sees the flame, and he says, maybe the gods still have a plan for me. Maybe there's some reason that I am here. There's some purpose. And we have to remember, with all of the sensational and kind of titillating or frightening things that we hear about, that we have been hearing about, if you follow along with the astrology, this sojourn of Mars through the sign of Aries, war, violence, aggression. This is Mars in his home sign, strong, passionate, cutting. And given the particulars of our world right now and the particulars and the circumstances of the mundane world through which we are walking, in which we are walking right now, it's easy to get kind of scared. But we also have to remember that Mars is that planet of bravery, of courage, of action. And Aries is the sign of the equinox. It's the impulse of life, the initial spark of life. This is a sign where the sun, the planet that represents our vitality, that unchanging ideal image, is exalted, is an honored guest. This is where our sun, the planet of ambition and vitality, is an honored guest. And we have both of these planets, the host, Mars of Aries, and the sun, the exalted, honored guest, currently in Aries. There is something about that tiny spark of flame in the hearth center. That tiny spark, that tiny ember that Davos says, maybe the gods still have a task for me. Maybe there is a reason that I am still here and I have purpose. And so I think that is the message, just real briefly, that I'm getting this week. Allow yourself, if you need to, if Mars, Neptune, and Aries, if you are feeling that bone weariness, allow yourself to find a wall against which you can lean, right? That's okay. That's okay. But tend to that spark of life in the center of the hearth, because that doesn't go away. And Mars, yes, is cutting, is violent, is aggressive, and is also passionate and courageous and brave and has will and is able to hold on to the impulse to live, the spark of life. And so that's what I've got for you today. Super brief, super raw, right? I think this week, allow yourself to feel the weariness. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to keep getting up. Find the ways that you can rest, literally sit down and light a candle and just kind of sit in stillness and look at the candle flame, or do that in a metaphorical way, right? Hold on to the hearth flame. Hold on to the ember in the center of the heart. It's there. It's always there. We can always tend it, right? So that's what I got for you, friends. I just didn't want to leave you hanging. It felt like an important ingress this week with Mars moving into its home sign. And also, I wanted to hop on and tell you, please come back and join me next week. I am delighted to say that I will be bringing on my friend and colleague, Kelsey Faith Wells. She is one of my co-hosts over at Nightlight Astrology for the monthly horoscope episodes, and she's a brilliant astrologer. And we are going to be looking at the following week, which is a big week. We've got a impactful, kind of fiery new moon in Aries. We have 6 and even 8 planets, if you count Chiron and Eris in Aries at the time of that new moon. It's a one tone as Aries can get moment. And then later in the week, we also see a triple conjunction between Mercury, Mars, and Saturn in Aries. So it felt like a big week that I really wanted to have a conversation with another astrologer about. So join me next week for that episode. And in the meantime, friends, hold on to that hearth fire. Remember that flame doesn't ever need to go out, despite weariness, despite age, despite the creeping tendrils of despair. There is a reason. There is a reason you're here. So take care, friends. Keep those flames lit, and join Kelsey and me next week. We'll see you then. Take care.